This video is brought to you by the comics that we make. Ed Piskor's Switchblade Shorties is now available daily on all of our social media and all of Ed's social media. You can follow that wherever you want to read your comics. Red Room Crypto Killers, the latest and third volume in the Red Room trilogy, is now available. However, you can start at any of these books because they are all self-contained. Hip Hop Family Tree, the Omnibus, collecting all 4 volumes of Hip Hop Family Tree plus 150 extra pages. Now available wherever you buy books. And X-Men Grand Design, the trilogy trade paperback, kind of the mass market version of X-Men Grand Design, collecting all 3 volumes in 1 volume. Hulk Grand Design, out of print on the Treasury size edition, coming soon as a trade paperback. Pre-order that one now. Street Angel Princess of Poverty and Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive. Collect all of my Street Angel comics in 2 handsome volumes. You can get those wherever books are bought and sold. And my self-publishing efforts, True Crime Funnies, BW Zine, and 1986 Zine are all available on jimrugg.com or patreon.com/jimrugg. And now back to our video.
You are streaming. We just got to email it to us and then be good to go.
You want to film our ending before we shoot any videos?
Yeah, sure. Prince of Cheese. Nice, we're showing up. Yeah, they're starting to filter in. Guys, we're gonna have Dave Cho on the hook today. Just pin that to the top real quick. Just grab a water real quick, Jimmy.
This is the Comics Journal making a really bad decision on their cover.
Jimmy, I think that there are fucking 2 Tom Tools Comics Journals.
I think I have another one.
I think I have the other one also. And it's like...
Later. It's maybe 4 or 5 years later.
The beard is bigger. On his fucking self-portrait.
You know what, man? It's nothing against Tom Tools either. It's just you have Liefeld versus McFarlane as your subheading, and it feels like if you're selling a comics magazine, you sell a few extra copies if you have Liefeld versus McFarlane as your main event.
That's Uncle Gary showing his bouginess. Tom Tools, 2 comics journals. It's like, come on, Uncle Gary. Like, we know that you read 3 newspapers and all that kind of stuff, but this is comics. Hart Fisher meets Rob Liefeld. Like, also, by the way, like Spurgeon's in like,
yeah,
it's a different editorial crew.
Yeah,
because like there was a Spurgeon response to some other letters and stuff.
Yeah, that's when he's the editor, right? That was a good run. I feel like that might have been the last good run. Yeah.
He's responding to people who are like, it's actually stuff that we receive a lot too, where it's like, you state a criticism. And the easy thing to do is say like, well, what can you do? Like,
yeah,
you can't do it no better. That type of shit.
Bob Levine is one of their columnists. I like Bob Levine's writing.
I don't know who that is.
He wrote the Chester Molester book, and he wrote the Air Pirates book. He's written other stuff too. But I found that to be good comics reading. It's hard to write comics text.
You know what I realized, dude? We have to, we got to do an Air Pirates video like this week or next because of the public domain Mickey Mouse stuff.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
like it's real dumb that that wasn't like the week of. Man, I don't like the quality of that video. Oh, I think I know what it is too. Like I have these set a little bit lower, so it's like really pumping more white into the optics. Oh well, I'm good if you are.
Yeah.
So what are we gonna start? Do I throw it to you first?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll bring this up.
Yeah. Kayfabers, we're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit like, go play around with the bell, get that setting adjusted so that you get access to all of our videos as soon as we make them live to Gem Pop. The videos are brought to you by a number of things. A part of that is the Patreon. The King Kayfabers on the Patreon get access to all of our videos before anybody else. A good number of them are hanging out with us in the live stream recording session that we are streaming privately, and that gets you even earlier access to the stuff that we're talking about. Ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make. You don't support the books, we can't make the vids, man. Jimmy, let the people know what you have on the stands and forthcoming.
I have Hulk Grand Design coming out as a trade paperback in May. You can pre-order that one now wherever you pre-order comics, and I appreciate those pre-orders. Let Marvel know that it is worth their while to keep these books in print. I also have Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive, and Street Angel, Princess of Poverty. Both are out and available now. These collect all of my Street Angel comics. There is a color volume of Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive, and a black and white volume in Princess of Poverty. So pick your poison. They are both self-contained. Start reading at either spot. And my self-published efforts, BW Zine, 1986 Zine, and True Crime Funnies are available on jimrugg.com or on patreon.com/jimrugg.
Red Room Crypto... Oh, yeah. Switchblade Shorties is my latest comics effort, putting the strips out daily on all of my social media platforms and the Cartoonist Kayfabe stuff. So it's on my Instagram. There's a dedicated Switchblade Shorties Instagram. There's a Switchblade Shorties webtoon archive of all the strips where you can read them pretty easily. There's also a Patreon, patreon.com/edpiscor, where you can read way ahead. I have more than 100 strips up there on the Patreon as we speak. Red Room Crypto Killers comes out at the end of February. This is the last volume of Red Room for the foreseeable future. Contains 4 self-contained stories. So if this is the first Red Room that you are exposed to, you can grab it without the need of the other trade paperbacks. If you dig it, grab the others. The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is out there. I saw it online for as low as $48 on Amazon. So get it while supplies last. This is a sort of like last run of that first printing before we go to reprints. So not sure quite how many of those are left right now, but it's the best book I've made to date. And X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback. This is the collection of all of my X-Men Grand Design works. Probably 3 years of work went into this package. Some of those are out of print, so this is your way to get access to all of those comics at once. Jimmy, there are a couple of other ways that the people can directly support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Will you let those people know?
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
There you have it. A bunch of different ways to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give the people their marching orders, Jimmy, and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
Felt fairly brief, man. Did we get it all in?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, too.
It's 3:09. That's about right.
I always think it's like about 5. You pass me on strips. I just want to put them. So the ones I got to scan today.
Ed, see, this is what my life is. You find places, now you're stacking up boxes.
You know what's funny, dude? It comes tomorrow, I bought the AV cart that you had in elementary school, and I'm going to put my TV on that. I'm going to put that drawing table downstairs, and then the stuff in that tub will probably go in the bottom row, and I'll even be able to push that cart into the other room, so I can have a more comfortable chair to play Nintendo, and more room for long boxes. Yeah. That's one of the things I'm going to pressure Cho into, dude. It's like, dude, you just came back from the Philippines. You go to Portugal. What about 4 days? 4 days in Pittsburgh, or maybe 3. Like if you don't care about a red eye, but like you come in. Then 1 day is like comic shopping, and then the next day is like a week of kayfabe videos. Oh, yeah, you're still fucking with that?
Yeah, I'm still.
It's closer than the Philippines. Because you know what he's doing, dude, is he got rid of like 20-something thousand comics, and he's buying them all back again. So I think that's going to be some of the conversation, dude.
That's fun.
But also, you know how he's got that addictive personality and all that? It's Legos. That's the thing. Again, I think it's like him with his kid. And so like his videos on the gram, like when he goes to the Philippines, to go to like Lego Philippines and like getting like rare like
Wow.
Lego figures and shit.
That's funny. Did you lock those?
Let's do it again. Redundancy is not a bad thing where this is concerned. Ready when you are, James.
Okay. Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
Before we dive into this video games versus comics episode, I want to remind everybody we are a daily comic book YouTube channel with over 1,600 videos that you can search on the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube homepage. You can search by your favorite cartoonist or your favorite comic book character or title, and chances are we've got some videos you'll love. I also want to let everybody know part of Cartoonist Kayfabe keeping the lights on is our Patreon. There are links below this video to our Patreon. There are 3 different levels there that'll get you access to our videos early. And at the King Kayfaber level, you will get access to all of our videos first because we let you sit in on the live recording session, which has turned into one of my favorite parts of Cartoonist Kayfabe. So check out the Patreon, see which level works for you, and get a leg up on the kayfabe effect while you're at it.
Might I say, we are on the road to 100,000 subscribers at this point, and since we mentioned that, the subscriber numbers have increased. So if you dig the channel, you've been keeping up with the videos, that's the best way to get access to the newest videos that we put live to Gen Pop. And I just want to see that clear 6-figure number.
Me too.
That's a fun goal to shoot for.
Absolutely.
Because after that, that puts us 10% on the way to our true goal, which is 1 million followers.
That's right. So let's get it there. All right. So Ed, this is Marvel 2-in-1, which was always the Thing comics. I have a handful of these, mostly random. There's a run where there's some like intergalactic or interdimensional wrestling that runs through a couple of issues. Kind of a weird series. You'd think the Thing might have his own, but also that name maybe not the best name for a comic book series, even back in 1983.
It's interesting to think because it's context, right? You have Marvel Team Up, and that's a Spider-Man book. So we're going to do another version where it's not quite a Thing series, which this goes away in like a couple of issues and becomes Thing number one. But my question is and it's an interesting thing to think about because you think about the sort of legacy and the pantheon of characters. It's really probably the Hulk when the Ferrigno show is out, but even Captain America is dusty. Spider-Man is pretty much it for Marvel for a big chunk of time. That's supported by some of this information that we've been receiving in email, where it shows the sales numbers, the sales figures for all of comics. And it would be just Spider-Man comics that just peaks into the top 50. Even stuff like Kirby's Fantastic Four wasn't even that big of a deal. Captain America was dusty. He's like 4th tier. He's like 4th round pick kind of character because it's Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Captain America. So the Thing, it's interesting that they're trying to support a comic with him. That said, these are one and done comics, just like Marvel Team Up, where it would be like the Thing and Alpha Flight. That was the first one that I ever scooped up at the little used bookstore because I was an X-Men head, and that was like my connection because of their connection to X-Men. But they're one and dones, which fit my criteria as a kid. So I have a big chunk of these, and Ron Wilson, the principal artist. I don't know that anybody else even drew these shits. He's a very comforting artist to me.
I was thinking about him a little bit this week reading this and thinking about him almost like in the context of Ron Friends.
Exactly.
I have a connection to Ron Friends because he's local. I grew up sort of like, this is the guy. Like, this guy draws, Marvel Comics and stuff. But it's very house style for Marvel, and I think Ron Wilson fits that.
Oh, absolutely, man. This is a guy, on your batting order, if you're an editor and you're assigning books, you put him 6th, 7th place, he will be reliable.
That's where I was going to slot him in, seventh on my lineup.
Yeah, because he's not bad.
Right.
But he's also, it's not a dazzling style. He's not going to really push the medium in any way. He's punching a clock. He's doing a job, and you're not going to have to worry about him. He's gonna turn in the deadline.
I don't know this to be true, but it's the kind of guy I would picture Jim Shooter would like this dude. Dependable. Like I often hear the wrestling podcast, and they'll talk about the best ability is dependability, and I feel like probably Ron Wilson, you're getting a dependable guy.
Yeah, I think so too. Because like he knows, and we could just start going.
Well,
through.
you know what? I just did want to point out, because we do talk technical stuff. A lot of color holds on this cover.
Yeah.
Like some weird stuff going on, because like even the purple it may be something like that. It's very strange, the color on here.
Yeah, it's a good point, man, because this is not, you can't take this for granted with the sliding and shifting plates, especially on a glossy paper. Like it was the glossy stock where you can't have more than X percentage of color because this
slips.
Stock will slip on the presses and things. And I bring it up whenever the idea of like two color holds comes up. Man, it was like the old Apple logo was like considered to be one of the most expensive logos in all of corporate history, because if you remember, it's like a rainbow of colors, and this is manually pressed materials back in the day. So like they would have to scrap and throw away so many boxes, so many print ads, all kinds of stuff to just get that Apple logo to look right, because you know this stuff shifts.
Yes.
And gets all messed up. Hannigan is a reliable hand. He designed. He's the guy who did like the Days of Future Past covers. Like a lot of iconic covers are really it's Ed Hannigan. Sometimes ghosting.
Yeah, interesting. You know, the other note I'd make is this Video Wars thing. It's almost like, was this beta versus VHS that we're going to be dealing with in this issue? And it's not. It's video games, but I think the language is pretty far out yet, you know, even for that.
Thing calls them these TV games. You know, like there's all this quaint talk, and, you know, it's Michelini. I don't know how old he would be at this time, but he would be, you know, a young adult. You would think he would have some hipness to him and, like, some understanding. Because, like, I think, was Michelini at Baltimore Comic Con? Like, there was, like, those old writers that...
Yeah, might have been.
It was, like, Howard Mackey, and then it was, like, a couple other dudes, and I felt like Michelini was one of them.
It's possible. I don't remember for sure, but
it's 83. Like, he's got to be young enough to have, like, a small modicum of hipness. But the fascinating thing to me with this comic is it kind of fits in with, like, Last Starfighter, and some of that stuff where I felt as a kid, because, like, you and I grew up through, like, before there was the little advisories on video games. In fact, when that shit was going on with the Senate subcommittees, Mortal Kombat, Night Trap, like, all those games, I remember thinking, like, oh, this is just what they did to comics. Like, I'm living through the video game version of that. But even as a kid, like, I knew that I wasn't getting warped. But put yourself in a perspective of a parent who has no experience with this stuff, and they see little Jimmy and little Eddie sitting in front of the TV, going like this on, like, a little pad, and just, like, staring and not blinking
and not moving.
Like
the rest of your body's not moving.
Yeah, exactly.
For hours.
Yeah, exactly. So you see that there's, like, a hypnotism going. Like, you don't understand it, but I will tell you, even in my day, thinking of, like, Last Starfighter and stuff, PlayStation 2, there's this game called SOCOM that came out. It had the headset where you could talk with Bravo team and shit, and then you could play online and stuff. And there was a half-hour Navy SEAL documentary up front, and I remember thinking, like, I'm a little scared to play this online, because, like, I already know it was a time where it was out and known that like, first round drones were being piloted by Xbox controllers,
right?
And that system was out at the time. PlayStation 2 was a rival to that. So I'm like, are they keeping track of, like, high scores? Like I mean, it has their sponsorship. Like, should I put this online? Like, these were thoughts in my head. You know, this might even be, maybe I bought 5 things off of eBay ever. So I'm just getting into e-commerce and shit like that. And that was, like, a nerve-wracking thing to me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's funny. Probably something to be, some of that to be concerned about.
We don't know that they don't have data.
In fact, we probably know that they do have data. It's fun to see the screens, though, you know, because, like, talk about, like, square dudes. You got to wonder, has Ron Wilson seen Pac-Man?
Right.
In 1983? Because I had an Atari 2600 that came with Pac-Man as one of the games.
And it was a terrible Pac-Man.
And it was probably 83, because I was 6. So right around that time period that's coming out. So I wonder, you know, like, if you're an old dude that's just sitting at your drawing table all the time, wouldn't surprise me if he didn't see much in the way of whatever video game, you know.
Part of the house style,
maybe like a quick screenshot or something that he could reference, and that's about it.
Part of the house style, and you see it with Ron Friends as well, is that they're such devotees of Kirby Ditko that in 1983 you might see dudes walking down the street with suits and trilby hats and stuff,
Yes.
like fedoras and things. You know, like they don't even know what clothes look like.
That's true.
In 1983, so this is a bit of a stretch, you know, and they're like pushing the imagination of Pac-Man.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we shouldn't bury the lead on this. The whole idea is this is an unofficial Pac-Man guest star, and that's your Pac-Man version. You can kind of see roughly he's the right shape. Some oddities there, but loosely, you know, how do you adapt Pac-Man from, again, I don't know how many bits those old arcade
Right.
games are, but very few to be like, well, what does it look like in pen and ink? So a couple of liberties here, you can see little legs on him and stuff, and obviously change the color because we don't want to get sued. This isn't an official Pac-Man crossover.
Right.
But I like the idea of like you're throwing these comics out so fast. Why
Yeah.
not? You know, like you just need an idea to get to the next deadline, and why not do a video game thing? It kind of feels like that thing of throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. Video games, we're selling ads. There'll be a couple ads for video games in this issue, so clearly it's something.
It's clearly, you know, it's clearly in pop culture. Like I didn't look ahead to see, like, you know, when Last Starfighter came out. Tron is probably around this time. So it's in pop culture, and like a short look Blip magazine.
Yeah, from Marvel Comics. So we're even selling you like we're not just doing advertising at this point. Now we're selling a magazine. Do you have these? I didn't look. But
I have one or two.
Some of them. I don't know if I have issue 1. Might be an interesting, weird time capsule to check out.
Right. And you know what? There's also TV shows. There's some of those video game competition TV shows that are out in these super early 80s. There were like 2 rounds of that. And like that first round, that's like when like Billy Mitchell and those guys would be the stars. And you know, he beat Pac-Man completely. So it's this new thing, but it's so crude.
50% off. They're launching this thing.
Oh, they want those addresses.
They're really trying to sell those.
They want those and you can imagine that, like, give these fucking things away, because unlike comics where it's like sea monkeys and stuff, it's kind of like what we deal with Google AdSense. If you talk about expensive stuff, you get more money for an ad for cameras and high technology than you do true grit textures for your Procreate. And so, like, give away those fucking magazines, because you're getting ads from Atari when it's like a fresh startup and maybe approaching $1 billion company.
Do you know when DC's Atari Force runs? Because it is interesting that,
Around
like,
this time,
all of a
probably.
sudden we do have like a prospective new big advertising accounts to be had here. So how do we fish for them? And yeah, man, start a magazine dedicated to it. Let's have some characters show up.
And you know what would be fun too? Like, I don't know if anybody's got these. Like, if you have a couple of extras laying around or something, the manual for Yar's Revenge is a comic, and I found digital versions and posted that online. Maybe I could dig around on my Facebook and put it up on the Kayfabe Instagram. But it's a comic, and it's done by like ad agency type guys. So it's that kind of comic where they have to bring their illustrative sensibilities down to like look like what they think a comic is supposed to look like, and has airbrushes. It's the most timely 80s piece of work
I
ever.
want to see it real bad.
Yeah, so if you have an extra Yar's Revenge manual or comic
I used to like
insert,
that game a lot.
Yeah, me too, because all the colors. It's like all the colors that were.
Yeah, it had a
on the
good
thing.
pattern or something.
Yeah.
That movement of, that was sweet. You know what's interesting to me is, like, looking at this stuff, it reminds me of all those side scroll kind of games.
Yeah.
Which I feel like this is a little bit ahead of. I don't know what would have been out that was like that. Pitfall or something. You know, I mean, I guess there were some,
Yeah,
but it
first
feels
Mario
very
Brothers.
much like that. And it does make me wonder what Ron Wilson was handed for some reference to figure this out.
And now, see, we talk all that smack, right? But like the cartoonist of today, like, has that knowledge. Like, it's a broad pop culture knowledge. It's not as stultified as like, I am a comics fan, I am a sci-fi fan. If I like Star Trek, I cannot like Star Wars. I feel like that was the attitude back then, but maybe not. You know, maybe he's hip. Because also,
that's funny, because in my head it's like it's some old dude that just doesn't know anything about whatever the young new stuff is.
but I don't know how old he is.
Yeah, I
man,
don't either.
Because
a lot of assumptions. I haven't come across any Ron Wilson interviews or anything.
And here's the thing too, like, there was 100% of the people that I played video games with growing up were black dudes, and he's a black guy, I think.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so I, you know, not like just putting something on a dude, but maybe he had a different level of hipness than your like Ron friends.
This is kind of a funny bit of Michelini's script is, wait a minute, this ain't no alley, it's a dead end. Oh, you know what? I misread this. When I first read it, I thought it was a dead end alley, but it's not. And I was looking at him like, why is he calling it an alley? But that's on me.
Just cut it. You get so much of this side scroll stuff, and you really wish that it was like a Brian Lee O'Malley, somebody with the hipness, because you could get like Moon Patrol. There's a lot of stuff you could get in here. You talk about the side scroll games, like Mario was out, like not Super Mario, but like the one with the pipes and you hit the POW block and stuff. That's a side by side thing. So you could have turtle, like you could have had so much more imagery than like the limited Pac-Man. But Pac-Man Fever, there was a song. It really took over. There was a coin shortage in Japan for the 100 yen coins.
Oh, wow.
Because like Taito fucking had all the 100 yen coins.
I think it's pretty clear that he is trying to do some video game stuff, because
Absolutely.
you see this
So
and
much
it's like
side
that's
scroll.
not going to appear normally.
Yeah.
In probably a typical Ron Wilson comic.
See, Ron Wilson could do this shit too, and it's dazzling.
Yeah, it looks good.
Still working in kind of Kirby style.
Oh, definitely. There's a couple of those pieces, like even some of the architecture feels very Kirby-esque. Some of these little choices. And Frank Giacoa is your inker on here too, who's somebody who had inked Kirby, so it's no secret Marvel, that's a big part of the DNA of the Marvel house style is that Kirby stuff. And in this case with Frank Giacoa on the inks, like you've got people that actually did Kirby art.
Right. Yeah, I love the side scroll stuff, and I also like the distance. I still want there to be a like a Spider-Man comic where he's this size in every panel, and like the city, just gets swallowed up by the city.
Man, that'd be cool.
Yeah, you need a Jeff Darrow, and I want it to work like a video game. Like this comic was actually very inspiring to me over the years, because like a lot of stuff can fit in that, and we have a better understanding of how video games, how you can make it work and stuff.
It's a funny, it's a good example, I think, of the way comics were written for little kids.
Totally.
Like this is definitely a little kid logic kind of comic, and nothing wrong with that. I think it was intended for, whatever it is, 8-year-olds or something, and that's what you get here. There's a certain simple logic behind this comic.
Right.
And it does kind of follow the game. Like we're there, not Pac-Man specifically, but the concept of a game. Like how do we defeat the big boss?
Right.
We fought the little ones that come out, kind of the pseudo ghosts, but the big deal is this thing's wrecking this world. How do we stop it? So kind of the video game plot, if you will, if not a specific video game of the time.
We probably should have had the Jack Kirby Pac-Man Destroyer Duck issue along with this to kind of show off that vibe.
It's funny that Blip, it's the hype box for Blip #1, and there are like comics in there, right? Because of course, what else are you gonna do?
Nothing's an accident.
Yeah, exactly. You almost wonder if this was mandated from an editor that was like, "Hey, we're launching this video game thing.
It makes sense.
Let's put this into comics." Makes me wonder if there are other Marvel comics from around this time period where they're slipping in some sort of video game type references.
Yeah, that's a good question. Put something in the comments if you guys know that to be the case.
Yeah,
Nothing comes to mind right now, but I bet there was one or two things. Why not?
And next issue, teaming up with ROM. Not a video game, but definitely a licensed product. And here you go. This is an Atari ad. Wow, like you get nothing. Like you can't even read beyond. I got football, baseball, and then this is like one of those eye charts at the eye doctor.
Right.
I just can't tell you what any of these other games are. But it seems like that's part of what they're promoting is a lot of games for this new system. So buy it, and then you'll be in business.
And that was the era, dude, where like you got football, no NBA Blitz, 2K.
Not even this.
Not even that.
These guys are way. You get a pixel or your players in these like the football baseball games of that time period. Here's another video game ad. This time Jack Davis art.
Yeah,
so
I don't even know
cool.
this comic. I mean this video game. No idea about that one. You know the one that worked really pretty well back then was the boxing one, top down view.
Yeah, kind of like U. They were almost like two U's that the
Yeah.
arms would come out of and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that made sense what I was doing there on screen, but I do know that. I do know that.
It
one.
really worked. Like the physics were right, the hitbox was correct. You just have to kind of get in the middle and launch the dude in the face. It was competitive.
Very funny to see Jack Davis drawing so much animation in these two dudes. It should be a guy sitting cross-legged, not moving.
Right.
Just fixated on that screen.
Right.
But available for your Atari video computer system or Sears Video Arcade.
Oh,
you ever
dude.
come across one of those?
No, but I do remember that my cousin Ed had a ColecoVision, and you could play Atari 2600 games on that.
Yeah.
You could pop in so it was like agnostic.
There it seems like with all this technology, often it's like this thing is better, but it's not the one that succeeds.
Right.
And I feel like that's one of those.
You got to sue Connecticut Leather Company when they fucking are stealing your software and making it applicable on their thing. And then there would be this history of like there's that company called Tengen, if you remember. There was like they did a Tetris, and then what was the dungeon game?
I'm gonna know when you say it.
Yeah, it begins with a G. Fuck, man. You know which it has like a dwarf, has a barbarian. I know it's going to come up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet you the King Kayfabers are just yelling at us. All caps.
They went to the patent office and they got the schematics for like the lockout chip for Nintendo, and they reverse engineered it and then made their cartridges and stuff. That's Gauntlet. That's what it was called. Gauntlet. So that's why their cartridges were like weird shaped, because Nintendo would sell you the cartridge. Like if you were a developer, you had to buy the cartridges off of Nintendo proper. So those Tengen games were like a different shape and stuff, so that they could bypass the chip and things. It was lawless back then, man. It was the Wild West.
All right. You got anything else, Ed?
I think I'm good to go.
All right.
So funny, man. Getting old.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. This wasn't good.
No, although I liked Semek's art a lot more than I remember liking his art, but I think there's a bunch of stuff in here that I don't know, like a bunch of character
we'll save it.
mergers.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
And before we begin looking at the latest Amalgam comic, Lobo the Duck, I want to remind everybody we are a daily comic book YouTube channel with over 1,600 videos in our back catalog. You can search all of those on the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube homepage. You can search by your favorite creator, favorite character, favorite comic book, and chances are you'll find something you like there. I also want to let everybody know that we do have a Patreon that helps pay our bills and keep our lights on. That link is below this video. You'll find 3 different levels of Patreon support. At the highest level, the King Kayfaber level, you will get access to all of our videos first, because you can sit in on the recording session. We have a room full of King Kayfabers right now giving us feedback as we search for various names in comics history. They kind of help. They're the support team as we record these videos, something I appreciate. But if you join the Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon and you get access to these videos early, it also gives you a leg up on the Kayfabe effect. Sometimes we show books that are harder to come by, they disappear in the aftermarket, or they go up in price. So if you are on our Patreon, you get to be the first one picking those books up. And if you pick up 1 or 2 of those books, it'll pay for your Patreon for a year. So check it out, see which level works best for you.
Some good people in the chat are very stoked on our Lobo the Duck coverage, but we'll see what they think of us. We'll see if they diminish their subscription by the end of this video. But also I want to let everybody know we got we're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. I want to get there in 2024, and just by the past couple of weeks mentioning that we were sort of on that road, subscriber numbers have jumped up. And before I ran a channel, I never subscribed to anything, but I do now, just because I realize like how it's a good delivery mechanism for the channels and the videos that you like. So I want to hit that number. That's a goal for 2024. So make sure you jump on board.
And it'll help you stay up to date. We received a text from a friend of ours yesterday with some notes on an episode that he missed, as
Right.
I gotta assume as a non-subscriber from a couple months ago. So yeah, it's the best way to stay up to date. But let's dive in. This is the second year that Marvel and DC were doing this team up. As I always say, I assume the first year was successful, so let's run it back. And they do it with some new books as well as repeating certain characters. This is the first appearance I'm aware of Lobo the Duck.
Yeah, sure. And I actually had no idea about this comic, so I was completely checked out by year 2. You showed off that like second Super Soldier comic, and I'm like, yeah, I had no idea that thing fucking existed. Guess there's a second Spider Boy. I had no idea that existed. The idea of this is cool, but I watched this. It was a DC promotional video from the 80s, and it was about Swamp Thing. So they talk with a young, less jaded Alan Moore, and Len Wein and Karen Berger. It's a really cool video. It's cut up in like 4 or 5 chunks online, and Moore was talking about like humor comics that are designed like, because you see big feet and more minimal line art or something, your brain registers that's supposed to be this is a humor comic, but it doesn't make you laugh, and that's Lobo the Duck.
There are a lot of words in this, and I think that maybe a few of these comics suffer from this because they're one-shots, and this is a time period when we're starting to move towards writing towards a trade. Whenever it's like, I've got a whole world and a whole bunch of characters to basically introduce and have a story with, a lot of words in this comic.
I think Alan Grant is up for that task because he worked at 2000 AD, so he's used to like a 7-page comic, and he's also very very funny. Like the Brits call it cheeky, and so I don't know what that is. Like why he's going in that direction. I don't know if it's editorial based, if he's looking at the Steve Gerber comics and doing like an Ersatz Gerber kind of thing. Because like I felt that vibe with the OG Howard the Ducks really. With something like this, like you could really, there's so much room for a lot of things that you could do. You could make a Carl Barks you could go John Stanley. You could play with the medium a bit, and people in mainstream comics are not up for that task. They don't have those tools.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't summarize this comic for you at home. A lot of the characters that we saw in season 1, like you see Doctor Strange Fate's helmet, he's dead. Dark Claw burnt onto the wall, presumably dead. Heads ripped off. So I guess this is the aftermath of some destructive force, and Lobo's there to stop the destructive force.
Totally. There is one text piece that did make me laugh, and you have the mergers of two characters. So there's one character in the Amalgam universe that you only know him by name, and he's Hawk.
Yeah, that's good.
I would like to see what that looks like, man, because Darkhawk has a particular helmet, but so does Hawkman. So how do you negotiate that?
Yeah, it seems like a perfect mashup. Hawk. They also do a lot of these footnotes of like referencing other issues that don't exist,
and that's supposed to be funny, but this isn't very good.
Yeah, I don't know DC history much. Like I don't know virtually any of these characters.
Yeah.
Like I'll recognize that mannequin from, I forget who. I think that might be a Batman villain.
Yeah, like the ventriloquist. But like he has a name like Mr. Boner or some shit like that. Bongface, Dr. Bongface. So like.
Yeah, you're also trying to do the Lobo humor on top of the mashup, and it's one layer too many for me.
I think one of the runners is that every time you see the pug, he has a different outfit on.
Yeah, he keeps popping up as like different versions.
And I think that's smart. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's good. It's one of those things that kind of keeps your pages lively. Having a character pop through there. I thought Ambush Bug. It was kind of cool to see Ambush Bug show up.
As soon as Ambush Bug shows up, you're like, oh man, I wish Keith Giffen did this.
Yes, yeah, it would have been fantastic.
Because now we're in the Giffen-verse, really.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like, I really like the Lobos that Keith Giffen was a part of.
Right.
Kind of wish he was here.
Right.
And now that he's passed, it means a lot more, like just wish he was still around to make more comics.
Totally. The design of Lobo the Duck is good.
I like his design. It fluctuates a little bit, this left foot, but you see like the big meaty right arm, and his left leg is that way sometimes. And I like that where it's like really off balance.
Right.
And I think that's a good reference for Lobo, because I think it's Lobo's back. He comes back as he dies and is reincarnated, and it's like Lobo's arm, but then the rest of Lobo's a woman. So you kind of have this like really strange body type, and it worked. It was a cool visual, and I think that they kept some of that here. So that's pretty good. Ambush the Lunatic, talks some trash on Lobo about what he does to ducks there, and Lobo turns around and he eats ducks. Lobo ends up eating him.
Who's the Marvel Lunatic?
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, see, there's characters that it's like deep cuts, because it's characters like Valkyrie. Like Defenders sucked.
Quite frankly, I do not know either of these universes well enough to recognize a lot of the mashups in here.
But you know what? Defenders, I have Keith Giffen Defenders comics, so this is like the Keith Giffen verse, like across Marvel and DC, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. These two are kind of feel like the right Lobo characters, because they're basically guys that are just here to die. Right. And they say that. Yeah, and that feels Lobo-esque and Keith Giffen-esque a little bit.
You'll get a good mix of these left to right kind of panels where it's like, 1 second removed. I'm always a fan of that kind of thing.
Here are your ads for some of the other titles that are coming out. Somebody had mentioned a John Byrne Challengers of the Fantastic mashup. This is not Byrne. I don't know if he did one maybe the previous year or not.
I have this one, so I guess I did pick up. At least one of the second wave.
That image to me is very Byrne-esque, but I don't know if it's actually John Byrne or just a kind of an homage to him.
Put it this way, the one that I have is looks similar to that, but it definitely is not John Byrne.
Yeah, I know he doesn't do the interiors. Is this your Valkyrie?
Yeah, she was also. I mean, she's a Howard the Duck character, or no, not Valkyrie. But like
Beverly is the. Yeah, I couldn't figure it out because Beverly is the Howard the Duck girl.
Yeah,
but I don't know Arlene who that is.
Yeah, we're frustrating everybody.
Yeah, people are mad. Forbush Man.
Yeah, no, that was sweet. That was sweet because like Marvel doesn't have that many characters. Like before Howard the Duck, Forbush Man was like as close as you could get to like something maybe Impossible Man.
Yeah, and like these three again, it's a failure on my part in a lot of ways, but it is what it is.
You know what I will say too though is like this shit was on the newsstand. It's like keep it simple, stupid. You know?
Right.
And also, you know what? It's so ambitious with all the characters, and maybe that's a part of like what they're trying to like. That's funny to them, but if you kept it simple, you could tell a story that you could create like one little situation and have a million fucking punchlines. Like that's the recipe for like all the best humor comics I've ever read. It work that way, where it's like you have kind of a simple scenario that's going to play out, and then all the funny things that could happen along the way.
I would get vibes at time of like an Eric Larson Savage Dragon with some of this stuff. Some of the artwork because it feels so mashed up with characters. You know, if these were original characters too, it'd be a totally different story.
Yeah, I mean this is that era too, man. Where like the Val Semiex, however you say that name, that it was a staple of the DC comics, and it was that period where you had that Starman look and like all of those kind of like monthly. There's a monthly comic look. There was like a lot of blacks. It's like they had a mandate, don't put so much crosshatch. We're not Jim Lee comics or something. And that was like probably the one time in my young life where I'm like, fuck, I'm going to have to like draw like this to like get in. I don't want to draw like this. So it always kind of rubs me weird like looking at these kinds of works.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the animated style and combined with, I guess, a rejection of the cross-hatching kind of stuff.
It's when you start to think of the guys, because like...
I think the color too is also like fighting with the art. Like they haven't quite figured that part out yet either. I kind of like the mostly saturated colors, but it doesn't feel like it all works together.
Certainly, like throw some of your rules out, man, because this is supposed to be a humor comic. So like, go flat color. You know,
right.
keep it poppy.
Because it is very complicated art. You know, like you look at a spread like this, and we've got 6 or 8 characters. Most of these panels have multiple characters. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So now we're going to do mottled color on top of that. It's like, where's your focal point? Bring the ghost of Alex Toth in here and show me the focal point on one of these pages or on this spread.
It's the truth, man. And I'm sitting quite some distance away. I can't see like what the important bits are.
Yeah, it's very, very, very chaotic in that sense. It also reminded me, there's a fill-in issue that Norm Brayfogle does on Lobo, the ongoing series, that I really like a lot. And there are moments where I see marks and I'm like, oh man, it really reminds me of that.
What's funny is whoever we're mashing up here, it turns to Mighty Man from the Eric Larson verse.
Yeah, it does.
But you know that, like, because there was such that bifurcation of comics at this period of time where probably most of the DC guys were never looking at anything image style. You know, it was a very antiquated form of comics making. So like he probably never even saw Mighty Man.
Yeah. This lady is called Gold Kidney Lady. I have no idea who that is, who that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I like the design for the duck motorcycle, the Lobo motorcycle, but with some duck accoutrements adorning it.
Makes sense, man.
It looks pretty good to me.
What was the Lobo is like the shape of a big gun?
Kinda.
Or is that Blood Wolf?
That's Blood Wolf is literally the big gun, but I mean the Lobo thing too. It's almost like the Ghost Rider 90s bike, but then
space chopper
crossed with a missile or something, a rocket or something for outer space travel, but basically a cannon that he's riding on.
There was a Ninja Turtles figure called Ace Duck, and it was a cool figure. He had like a Terry and the Pirates suit, and he had the captain hat and stuff. And we would always watch the show like, man, when is Ace Duck going to show up? Because that's what would happen. Like you get the toys, and then eventually those characters show up on the cartoon. Ace Duck shows up as a cartoon that the Ninja Turtles are watching. You see him for 2 seconds ever.
That's such a good gimmick for having toys.
Right.
You could have a different show every episode.
Yeah, totally.
It's amazing. And it ends with her device shooting the moon, and presumably next issue everybody dies.
This is where the tick got to show up, right? That was Chairface Chippendale's scheme,
It'd be good.
if you remember.
So there you go.
Because they demanded it. And,
Yeah.
and then I ask, man, it's a good thing that we are the kayfabe leaders of the cult, because we're going to steer you guys in the proper direction.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick the next one. We did do Thor Ryan of
Yeah.
the new Ass Gods. Wow, that's a bad. I wonder if they want to rethink that one, which is pretty cool because it's John Romita Jr. just straight from pencil reproduction. Pretty weird at this time in 97. We also did Dark Claw Adventures, so if you guys are interested in more of these, go check those out. We did the first Super Soldier. Those are in our archives.
And Doctor Strange Fate.
Doctor Strange Fate. The one that I would pick next is probably Amazon.
That's what I'm thinking.
The John Byrne, Terry Austin team up. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. There's an Amalgam playlist on the channel, so you could have access to all of them kind of at once. Interesting gimmick. Did it have the sinew and the sort of underlying qualities to yield a year number 2? I'm not seeing it from this comic.
yeah, I agree with you. And I also wonder, like, I bet there are people who like the Lobo ongoing series way more than like the Bisley Lobos because they're so different. Those
It's
two.
square. Like like I feel like you could psychologically profile. You could have prejudicial thoughts about the person that likes that stuff compared to the Keith Giffen shit because it's placid. It's the mall version. It's the Hot Topic version of Lobo comic, really.
By editorial mandate too, according to Wizard Magazine.
I could believe that.
Yeah, it was intentionally like file those corners off, guys. We're gonna go monthly on this.
Everything that's fun.
It's a shame.
That and you would think that like even when Preacher comes out, that you're like, maybe add some of that because like Hitman would have crazy shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Great cover design. I really like this cover a lot.
I like the art in this. I'm not gonna lie. I do think that they dropped the ball in not stealing like all the Duck stuff they could have fit in here. Like this should have been the all-time history of Duck comics mashup.
Totally.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, and there's a lot you could have done with this for sure, but like they're cashing checks. Good to go.
Yes. Did you find any of this online?
Yeah, I was looking at just in general, because like it's such strong artwork.
Man, and this is
This is what we're looking at, guys.
oh yeah, Radical Rick. All you BMXers in our King Kayfabe audience.
Yeah, fucking
probably
zero.
know this one.
That's what I'm saying. Like we have to like call it something like, you don't know this comic, but you should, and be super vague about it because I think it is very good. But if you just call it, I don't think one person's clicking. Like I think it's a 10 out of 10 if you sell it incorrectly. But it's fantastic looking. Very West Coast. Good to go.
Mm-hmm. Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Before we dive into Radical Rick, the complete episodes, I want to remind everybody that we are a daily comic book YouTube channel with over 1,600 videos in our back catalog, and you can search for your favorite creator, character, or comic books on the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube homepage. We've probably covered something you'll love. I also want to let everybody know that we have a Patreon for Cartoonist Kayfabe. We have 3 different levels that'll get you access to our videos early, and at the King Kayfaber level, you'll get access to all of our videos first because you sit in on the recording session. We have a room full of King Kayfabers joining us right now. So check out that Patreon link below this video. See which level suits you best.
And you know what? This is getting kayfabe affected already. I think it is sold out, and people are already snapping it up. I see that happening in the chat and in the DMs and things. But I do also you got to let the people know, man, that we are on the road to 100,000 subscribers. So if you can't support the Patreon, the best way to get the vids the fastest and to mitigate that kayfabe effect, because you're going to be paying out of the nose for this now that the King Kayfabers are snapping it all up, is to be on the ground floor whenever we release new videos. We only have about 11,000 subscribers to get before we hit that 100,000 mark, and we do our victory lap showing off that little trophy that you see in the back of everybody's video streams. Man, long time coming. We've been at this for 5 years. I think it's time. Get us to 100,000.
Yes. Share these videos that you love. First thing I want to note, look at the gimmick infringement on the cover. How do you get away with this? It's a wraparound cover, and it's got all kinds of characters that I'm surprised everyone's okay with this.
Right, because it's the legit versions, like there's not like an eye patch on Donatello there or anything like that. Ballsy, like put it out there, try it, and see what happens.
Exactly. I don't know how I found this. It crossed my Instagram. I start following this guy. It's cool artist, as you're going to see, and I'll start flipping because this is a big book. But Radical Rick appeared in BMX Plus, the magazine, from 79 to 93. Mm-hmm. And this guy is an accomplished artist. Like, part of while he's doing this, he is a vice president of creativity at a big advertising firm in Los Angeles. He was directing Disney commercials, and he would draw this like in the mornings and stuff. It was 2 pages basically a month. And there are notes throughout here. It's a really nice collection. He put the collection together himself with help from, some fans actually that provided some of the episodes that he didn't have original art for. But for the most part, this is him putting a book together that had been asked for years. And so there are notes that go along with it. There's also people that he worked with at BMX Plus giving some insights. There are professional,
Matt Hoffman. Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Got about 70 concussions.
There you go. It also has, a lot of BMX professionals will give kind of bits and pieces, along with Damian Fulton's family talks about the experience of growing up, and they would come down, he would draw, and they said poster boards. So, like, very big. And one of the exciting parts is we're going to get into this is the first year. They're in chronological order. So you see starts out black and white, but we're going to get full color pretty quickly. The color is really the piece that is like amazing, and it's all practical.
Yeah, totally. He's like a juxtaposed level, like Robert Williams painter.
Yes.
So like aside from this stuff, you could see Damian Fulton's like big giant paintings. The guy's a heck of an artist, and the artwork in these, like, we're looking at the crude kind of early stuff, but you could tell there's still something there. I love the idea that it's on poster board, because I these guys who are doing these comics kind of like from outside of the medium or comic style imagery, I think of the first Snoop Dogg album cover, where it's clearly like, they got some money, and whoever Snoop assigned that to is like, I gotta go get some supplies. They call them supplies and stuff. I gotta go to the store and get some supplies, and it's all the wrong stuff that professionals would not use, because for a lot of reasons. Sometimes the shit doesn't show up right in print when you shoot white light when you're doing your scans or something. But look how fast the guy gets good doing stuff like this.
Yes, it really becomes a lot of fun that way.
And you see the Robert Williams in here, man, from the jump, the Big Daddy Roth. Like, there is a West Coast flavor of cartooning. And what's interesting is so much of that West Coast kind of cartooning, it shows up in, like, Cartoons magazine. Yes. It shows up in places that is not proper comics.
It's one of the things that I was hoping to try to sell a little bit with this collection, is this idea that, like, comics and cartooning was kind of everywhere. And it was in these places that weren't the newsstand spinner rack, but also, like, pretty exceptional stuff.
Nintendo Power would have stuff. Like, and then you try some things and you're like, you know what? I ain't going to do that next time.
He tries so much. Like, there are inventive layouts. You see him playing with the lettering. He does a new logo every single strip. It's a labor of love, and I think it comes across that way, because this is a guy that was trying to make time to do this and did so for every single one except one, where Alfredo Alcala does a fill-in one month. He does the layout and writes it, but Alcala does the painting. Like, even like overhead shots like this, it reminded me a little bit of Jamie Hewlett in Deadline Magazine,
where
it feels like it's a guy that just has a lot of creative energy, and he's just figuring it out on the page.
And he's pulling from far divorced kind of sensibilities than we're used to. I mean, I think this guy, you see stuff like this, he's pulling from Highlights magazine kind of aesthetic, Goofus and Gallant type aesthetics.
There is Highlight magazine's referenced in one of the notes sections.
It
where
makes
like
perfect sense.
They did basically a reference to it. And as the series progresses, like, you'll see this Cadillac turns into the Attack-a-Lack, and it has like tank treads under it, but also the supporting cast grows.
Yeah.
So at first he has like MX Mug as his good friend. These guys, the setting here, Crushed Crank Canyon, is where Radical Rick has a lot of his adventures. And so these are two kids that are like, one of them says Radical Rick's not real, and one of them says he is. It's like Santa Claus. And so they're going to go hunting for him, and they have their encounter. It's inventive, too, trying to figure out stories for this stuff.
Because it's 2 pages, right?
Yeah. Some of them, they go on, like they're sort of like threads that continue, and sometimes they're multi-part. But this is a bully showdown with Radical Rick, and the reflection in the eyeball is fantastic, and even the close-up, almost like a John Kay kind of Ren and Stimpy close-up,
like
the
Bill Ray paintings.
Let's see the gross zits and stuff on this guy, on this bully's face. So pretty cool stuff like that. And most of the strips have something like that to offer. These are accounts of his kids talking about their experiences. One of them drawing on a half-finished Radical Rick strip.
I've done that to my mom's sketchbooks when I was a kid. She had this sketchbook and she drew her dream house. And I was like, this is kind of boring. And I started putting ghosts coming out of the windows and like little Draculas and stuff. Bats. She actually liked it. That's
pretty good.
She didn't shit on it.
I could see that working. The lettering's very inventive. I'm always pretty happy with that stuff. You see him trying different things. But even the action shots of like bikers jumping and moving. Bikes, very hard to draw.
Absolutely.
And then bikes in motion. Good luck.
Got to keep those wheels off the ground.
What we just passed was like a 4-part origins of Radical Rick. And by the way, Radical Rick, super cool design, right? Almost
skull face.
Yeah, exactly.
Genius.
Never talks.
Right.
And he maintains that through 15 years of this without the need for him to talk. It's almost like that was something he figured out early. I think this is the only sideways strip, and I think it works really well, like a Sunday page.
Sure.
For some reason, it feels a little bit bigger to me.
You can see the markers. It's pretty freaking sweet. And when you have just 2 pages to do in a month, you could put a way different level of thought and care into those pages than when you're doing 20 pages a month, man.
Yeah.
So he's making good use of his time, and I understand he's got other responsibilities, but this is what comics can be if you put all your effort into them.
Yeah, it surprised me whenever I actually got hold of this thing. I ended up selling them himself. I do think a paperback version is coming soon. So if you're watching this video and you're like, oh man, that thing's sold out, follow the guy or look wherever, because a paperback version is in the works. So you'll be able to pick this up if you want to add it to your collection soon enough. I ended up actually putting an alarm on my phone because I knew it was going on sale at like noon one day, and was like, yeah, that's probably something that I wish I had after it goes away. I do think he plays with different materials too. Like some of this stuff he talks about is watercolor. So he's like mixing up colors and things like that. Certainly the markers I think are something you can see a lot of, but even like trying to blend it, it makes me think of some of the European cartoonists that we've looked at where it's like, how are you even blending some of this stuff? The tricks that we know from color, like hit that with the white highlights to really give it that kind of top glow. You'll see those little details. Very instructional from a real color material standpoint.
Yeah, sure.
Because nobody works this way anymore.
Right.
It's nice to get those documents too. He talked about people hounding him to make this for like 10 years. It just gets lost to history, like you almost have to be your own archivist if you want this stuff to be around. Pretty cool that he finally got around to doing it. But otherwise, like, I would never see these. I'm not buying back issues of BMX magazine. And even if you wanted to, imagine the nightmare of trying to collect a run of this.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, there's definitely been times where, like, I grab a magazine, like, for Drew Friedman, say, and I just cut out his piece and tuck it into the hardcover of one of my Drew Friedman books.
Feels like cartoons, cartoon reference kind of stuff.
The style, it's all there. It's so West Coast. You could just look at this and say that this is like, is definitely some California-based cartooning. We're starting to get a parody. We saw Patton, now we got some Mr. T, so he's bringing some pop culture to it.
And it's Mr. TTEA.
Yeah,
it's surprising that you get away with what you get away with back then, because they are very, very thin in the parody department for some of the characters that show up. It's definitely fun. Like that's a crack magazine, Mad Magazine kind of level of fun cartooning.
I have this National Lampoon magazine. It was the 80s version. Where it was Adam Kubert did the parody of Mr. T, and the splash page is him snorting a big fucking rail of cocaine on the front for like the splash page.
That's funny. Yeah, National Lampoon's another one of those where like there are these outlets where comics appeared that as a comics fan, they just didn't cross my path. Like, I never see National Lampoon, in back issue magazine.
And
it's so rare that I see those in a comic setting.
Absolutely, and it's so important for the history of comics. Like Mike Judge, on every interview he does, there it is, as hard as hell. On every interview he does, he name checks M.K. Brown and Mimi Pond. These ladies were badass Nat Lamp cartoonists. In fact, M.K. Brown. A lot of people don't know this. Whenever the Tracy Ullman show had the cartoons, like we all know Groening and The Simpsons, but there was another cartoon called like Dr. Nagato or something like that, and it was M.K. Brown cartooning.
Makes sense.
And both of those were in the running for like the show, but of course the family drum was gonna win out over top of the psychologist character.
Yeah, although I can see how that would work as well.
Well, it did. Like there was like John Lovett, the critic kind of thing, and there was like one or two other kind of weird like USA cartoons, Duckman or something.
This is one of the recurring bad guys. I forget his Scuzzer Switchblade. Man, like what a great looking character, right out of like superhero comics, practically.
Yeah, man. Like he had
Razorback, I think, was Marvel's version.
Gotta call him that because the name Road Pig was already taken.
Yes. How about that for your modeling and blending of color?
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
know what that medium. Like there may be colored pencils worked in there too.
A guy who runs an ad agency can swing the markers because like so many of the mock-ups are done that way.
Right.
And it's a special paper, like there's a paper that handles the saturation in a certain way that is got to have the proper tools for the trade.
Great weight and body language on this stuff, which you got to have if you're going to have a guy flipping through the air and actually racing these bikes. Like there's a real attention to the physics behind this stuff. We think of it usually in comics as body language stuff, but in the case of like if you have a kinetic strip going on, it's really the weight. It's that physics of like racing around a track.
Yeah, and I think a big influence must be Jack Davis.
Feels like it. Yeah, definitely feels like it.
In proportions, in some of the animation.
Yeah, how about that? Speaking of animation, oh man, keep your eyes peeled because number 90 is the one that is the one fill-in issue. I don't know that I would pick it out if I didn't know better.
Right.
And it probably speaks to Alfredo Alcala's ability to do pretty much anything.
Which is surprising because every time I see an Alcala superhero comic, I can tell that it's Alcala.
His inks are his. Yeah, it is. It's funny to think of him as being able to just show up and paint something. Because I don't think of him as doing...
Well, I think he did the Masters of the Universe stuff. And I think he did the colors on that. Certainly not the Errol Norham covers, but the interiors.
You see airbrush being used, too. So it really is whatever materials I think are available, or maybe that he feels like playing with. Maybe he had a big commercial job with an airbrush and was like, I could do some stuff with that.
It's still here. I didn't clean it out yet.
Let me do that night scene. I can do a perfect sky with that. Yeah, you got to imagine some of that is in play, but
and look at this. I think
should be.
I think it's like scanned from the magazine.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
There's notes about production in here, and some of them are from the magazine. You just could not locate original art.
Shit, and if it's markers, I bet you that like
that's true too.
The marker stuff, and you could always tell, like, because you could see it becomes fractalized.
You see the dot patterns will show up from the little dots that are making up the color. They were saying like one of the fun games is go through and see how many times you can see his kids' names in the graffiti that populates alleys and ramps and all kinds of stuff. Got to, right? Gotta do this stuff for yourself at some point. And I think it comes across that way.
And like going through this the way we are, like I'm getting little Annie Fanny, elder kind of vibes.
That makes a lot of sense.
Once again, 4 pages every couple of months, so you could put so much effort and craft into your comic pages when you don't have the responsibility of doing 30.
I was reading about Damian Fulton a little bit, in preparation for this. That's pretty fun. That's a departure from a lot of the lettering that we've seen. So still trying different things is I don't know, 10 years into it maybe. And he was talking about some of the other places that would approach him for comics, surf magazines. He is like Southern California specifically, not just West Coast, but Southern California. And so surfing was a big thing. And there were like surf magazines, ski magazines, different places that would try to get strips out of him. Right. Because that was a boon for, if you're a magazine editor, publisher, that was something that they felt brought value. And a lot of the testimonies from the BMXers throughout this book is basically that. Like they wanted their BMX Plus, and this is where the first strip they would turn to.
Right.
Now, what else are you going to put in your book? But I still think there's probably a lot of truth to that, because otherwise a publisher's not shelling out that money.
I'm getting some. Wonder if I just had to see if that was some kind of like fan club. So he's accumulating a mailing list. Damn, and you look at this and you got to think Aragones.
This is pretty cool. This is a note from Damien, and it's about the publishers were constantly in a battle with other mags for eyeballs, and always trying to get readership up, subscribers up, so they could sell ads for more money.
Right.
Of course. So these are some examples of different things that the BMX Plus editors would come to him with ideas about what to do. This is your classic like Charles Atlas kind of ad of a BMXer kicking sand in somebody's face at the beach. So an obvious one there. This is the one that he calls highlights. Help Radical Rick find his 25 hidden Christmas presents. An idea right out of Highlights magazine. And it's funny because he says like with that one, he was excited because he would look at these things like in his dentist's office. And it makes me think like these guys who are creative, that's what they do. Like they're constantly sort of taking in the world and taking it in ways that regular people aren't looking.
You get that from the David Carson guy with his talks and stuff. Like, hey, he's just got the, we carry cameras around.
Yeah.
And, he's at the grocery store and just sees a piece of weird type on a shampoo bottle and is like, yeah, I'm going to archive that.
I think every artist I know has done a version of that.
Sure.
And it's interesting to think like the rest of the population, the majority of the population don't.
You know what it is? It's to a civilian, it's an exhausting thing to witness, man.
It is.
Because like I've been bitch slapped a million times by various chicks over the years of just like, can you just turn it off for 10 seconds? Even
coloring, and I think again, color pencil, I think on the teeth. Rendering on the teeth. Double lighting on the teeth, because you have that yellow from the underlight on the teeth.
It's the pen and ink version of lowbrow Robert Williams kind of painting.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
And his paintings do resemble that. It's all the same kind of imagery. In fact, like this cartooning to me
How
is
wild that is for Marx.
Yeah, a little wet on wet, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Like his paintings are so close to Williams that you could probably mistake him for that. So I actually like appreciate the comics a bit more, to be honest.
And again, he still pushes those layouts. So J. Simpson making an appearance there.
This is very, very inspiring.
I was thrilled with it because you never quite know what you're getting. I was buying this with only seeing a little bit of Instagram art, and you never quite know what it's going to show up as. I'm thrilled with it. Like I actually keep this on the nightstand. I'll read a couple of these at night, and they read well because, like I said, it is like ongoing. There's a cast of characters. By the time you get to this point, there's a girl that likes him. There's just a number of these. I think they have the sidekick has a sidekick. So it really does build and expand.
The character becomes a bit of an icon for the magazine. I
Yes.
remember seeing big cardboard standees and there was a kid I grew up with that was
How wild that sky is. I was just admiring these clouds last week.
There's a kid I grew up with that was a BMX pro when we were in middle school and stuff, and you would see big posters with Radical Rick and shit. I guess maybe at like the BMX Plus Pagoda or something. Or maybe they sponsored some of the competitions, like at the push.
It makes so much sense if you're BMX Plus. I mean, how long would it take before this becomes like the front piece? Because what else are you gonna do? You hold up a magazine as like your sales point, like you want something that could go on a T-shirt, that could go on a big banner, that could be identified from a long distance away. And if you can do a character in a world of biking, there's one of the strips. It's an editor from the magazine, and I don't know if it's Kayfabe editor or not. But he's talking about demoing and what they do at the magazine, and trying to figure out the writer to give the demo to. And of course, he makes the mistake of giving it to Radical Rick and doesn't think. And this happens a few times, this gag. Oh, I'm not getting that prototype back in one piece, which is great. Like there's an attitude that goes with the character. And I think Fulton understood that understood that attitude and packed it in there. And I think that attitude is not that far away from a Mad magazine or a Crack magazine in certain ways. Again, with he never runs out of ideas whenever it comes to like just cool graphic stuff to do. Even like these soft borders and stuff. I don't know that we've seen that yet.
Yeah. This feels like very Spumco-ish.
Yeah, and we're getting to the early 90s. We might be there already, so it's possible this is stuff that he's seeing, and it's possible he's seeing this stuff in his professional capacity,
right?
Because he is working as a commercial director and things. So, he's not just making art himself; he's also interacting with people who are art makers.
Isn't that one of the great benefits of doing Cartoonist Kayfabe, dude? Is like just every week, kind of instructing yourself to just like look at 7 new things and dust shit off and take in new data and information.
I love the stylized cars, and get your wheels off the ground. Give us some speed. You know, he does know those rules.
It's lowrider culture too. So still, it's a very honest comic. You know, this is you can almost imagine an inflection of the dude's voice, a little Spicoli-ish probably.
Yeah, and it covers all these spots from nighttime adventures to the alleys to schools. You know, like, again, you figure, like, how do you turn this a different way? How do you keep coming up with a different variation on the same theme, which is always like the ongoing serial comic, I don't know, challenge. And you see him answer that challenge in a lot of different ways, which I think just speaks to a super creative guy. The artwork, I thought about how to do this video, and one of my ideas was we just go from like this and skip to show the evolution style-wise of how different this is. Look at how polished he is.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure these are different materials than what we saw in the first couple years of color.
Getting closer to the Annie Fanny vibes, but still you could see the marker in there.
Yeah, I suspect, like, with these pieces that you're getting maybe a little digital added on top, because I think the chapter pieces are new for the book.
I see.
Or newish. Maybe they're commissions and things, but I think they're newer than like the strips that are being reprinted. And we're almost wrapping up his run. If I were going to give one note on this book to Fulton, it's like, I'd like to know about him stepping away. Like, whenever he figured, you know, like after the last strip, and we don't get any of that. I don't think the magazine ends in 93. No. So I wonder, like, you know, if it was just too much family and work, and I mean, you do it for 15 years. How about that for, again,
it's a Mad Magazine.
12 years in, and hey, I just thought of a new way to kind of show off the cast, to take advantage of that real estate that I've been playing with for 12 years, and thought I had already pushed the layouts enough.
Fantastic lettering. You know, Hewlett worked the exact same way. You know, like there will never be another Hewlett comic. Like, he did his time. It's incredibly labor intensive. Certainly when you're working at this level, you know, you make your statement. We interviewed Paul Pope, right? And when he was talking about Escapo, he was like, you know, this is my prog rock, like, concept album, and, like, you only need to do one of those.
Yeah.
So this is the body of work. Enjoy it. Thank you for your service. Unfortunately, like, certainly when it comes to mainstream comics, the consumer churn is they never take the creators into consideration. It's always like, what's next? Well, what do you got for us next? What do you got for us next? We hear it all the time, you know? And it's like, nah, dude, say thank you for your service. Appreciate your comic. Awesome. You know, great contribution to the medium.
So good with stuff like the metal textures and everything, and, you know, inventive effects.
When you see this stuff, there has to be an active sketchbook. There has to be. You can't just attack the page willy-nilly and not try some things on some test paper.
Makes me wonder if he's reading comics, like, ongoing, because some of this stuff feels
90s image.
Yeah, it does. You know, it does.
It actually was like, what do you call it, man? Martial law, like Kevin O'Neill type shit.
You know what? You say Kevin O'Neill, and now it's like I see that in a lot of this stuff. I see an image like this, and it reminds me of, like, photorealism, even though if you look close, it's completely cartoon. And I think it's the lighting that makes it feel that way, which speaks again to a guy who's spinning a lot of plates to put these pages together. In the very final strip, the bad guy had planted a bomb, and Radical Rick takes that bomb. I should say spoilers before everybody watches this part. Oh man, how badass is this? For you're dropping into a ramp,
right.
So you get that bird's eye view looking down at this thing, and then we get our motion of actually hitting it and taking that bomb up into the stratosphere, saving everybody else, sacrificing himself. Radical Rick is gone forever. Not, except he is.
It said not, so that definitely puts it in a time and place.
It does.
I had maybe 3 shirts that were not shirts when I was like in 5th grade.
I can still remember whenever I first started hearing "not," and I was so confused. Like, it sounds awkward.
It's a very
just to say it.
Yeah.
And then it was like everywhere.
Real Valley Girl stuff.
Speaking to the prevalence of Radical Rick as a cultural icon for a certain age group
and a demographic of interest for sure. But I mean, this is iconic. I feel like everybody must have seen Radical Rick's like the aesthetic somewhere.
Yeah. Super cool book, and would highly recommend people that are just fans of cartooning and comics. Like, this is one to put on your radar because I do think it's going to become more available in the coming months. But a fantastic cartoonist, and it's wild to me to think like 6 months ago I had no knowledge of this.
Right.
And now I look at it and I kind of shelf it next to the Jamie Hewlett's, to a cartoonist I really like. And I love this style. And I think there's probably a few more of these kinds of examples out there that I just have not seen, don't even know exist.
Yeah. Like they're, like this is so strong. And there are all these comics that are sort of all over the place. Right. But they're not this good.
That's true. Yeah,
They're not this good. Like there's a guy called Jim Siergey, Siergey. As far as I know, he doesn't have one comic book, but he would be in like every magazine. He would be in all those cartoons magazines. He would be in Joe Bob Briggs hit me up in the aughts. He had a religious parody magazine. His name's John Bloom or Broom, and the Wittenberg Door it was called. There's fucking Jim Siergey comics in the Wittenberg Door. He's everywhere. Like you almost when you find comics in weird magazines, you see your Jim Siergey shit. It's crude and stuff, but like I bet he made more money than Marvel guys because this shit pays way more. Like a 2-page comic in BMX mag. I did spot illustrations for Dirt Rag Mag and stuff like that and the aughts, and those paid better than comic pages, and it was a spot one drawing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm under the impression he had a good bit of freedom too. It was like deliver your comics, on time, and
you got to
have fun doing it.
Yeah, you got to give this guy like the editor at BMX Plus isn't going to instruct him to do better than this.
How could you?
Yeah,
because I don't even know how you write this. It feels like this is written on the page as it's being drawn, and if that's the case, I don't know how you interact with an editor for something like that.
Yeah, like I guess also the in comics, right? Like there are a few cartoonists like Steve Purcell would be in this school of cartooning where it's like extremely high levels of craft, but you don't get much. And there would be Sam and Max comics that would be included in like the LucasArts newsletter. Like 2-pagers. They were color. That's where you could get this stuff. I guess they would show up in the collections, but I don't even know if those Sam and Max collections were probably super expensive at this point.
Yeah, it bums me out in a way because I do think it'd be fun to see a bunch of those kind of magazine pieces, and they're just gone to history, most of them.
Yeah, I do think it's very important for the culture, because like that's stultifying. Like there's a lot of complaining, and we've had great success over the past couple of weeks pulling off some like real shitty old comics and just kind of cutting promos. But the truth is, man, there is good stuff out there. You just got to get your truffle hound nose into the magazines and the old flea market boxes of whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to go?
Yes. Do you want me to do the Munhall? Is that good for you? It'll be 4 videos for me?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to have to pull this up, I think.
Yes, sir. We're looking at the new Joe Munhall book that Fanta put together. Don't you love that they call it artist editions?
I'll let you know on the video, Ed. I get so mad that like language just doesn't mean anything.
Nomenclature confusion.
Yeah, but I kind of also I don't care. Like as long as you're gonna make this, it doesn't call it what you want, but produce this book. So I'm willing to make that concession.
Now you guys know that Fanta doesn't print a million of these things, man. So I've seen a lot of people showing these off. So this is probably one to get sooner than later if you're interested in Joe M. We're gonna call it something like this, Kirby's legacy could have been ruined or something like that. Because this was Stan Lee's guy, Joe Munhall.
I didn't do it, but I know that Munhall's in that Scioli Stan Lee.
Yeah, and you
book,
can tell he used that photo.
And it makes me want to kind of go revisit it because I don't remember the details except that Munhall died and Stan Lee moved forward or whatever. And it kind of makes me curious if there's more Munhall in there.
Right.
Because they worked together pretty closely for like 10 years, so there may be a couple more pages of it.
3,000 pages.
Amazing.
Well, he had a 3,000-page career. I don't know that was all Atlas, because it shows a bunch of big breadth of work.
Yeah, he did everything, it seems.
Good to go.
Hit it. Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Looking at an exciting book here today, Ed, but before we crack open the Joe Munhall Artist Edition, I want to remind everybody that we are a daily comic book YouTube channel with over 1,600 videos that you can search on our YouTube homepage. You can search by your favorite creator, character, or comic, and I'm sure you'll find something to be happy about there. I also want to let everyone know that we have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon that helps pay our bills. there is a link below this video. You can click on that, see which level suits you best, and gives you access to the videos early. It gives you a leg up on the Kayfabe effect. And at the King Kayfaber level, you'll get access to all of our videos first because you are sitting in on this recording session that you see right here in front of you. And we appreciate the King Kayfabers a lot. There's a lot of good conversation that takes place on these recording sessions. So check out our Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon below the video and see which level suits you best. And we are on the drive for 100,000 subscribers, closing in on 90,000 now. So be sure and hit that subscribe button if you're a comics fan out there. Like I say, it's a daily service. You don't want to miss a video. We had a good friend text us this week because he had missed a video a couple of months ago. So hit that subscribe button. You'll be notified when we post new videos, when we do live streams, all that good stuff. It's the best way to stay informed. And we want one of those YouTube plaques, so help us get there this year.
Yeah, do our victory lap video in
Absolutely.
2024. Every channel has that video.
Damn right. So
this might be my favorite piece of the whole thing.
Yes, there are two pieces. I think there are 3 total Submariner covers that Munhall does. 2 of them are reproduced in here. They're amazing.
Yeah.
I wish there were comics of this stuff.
The tools are so wild, dude. It's just like using like whatever kind of fine liner rapidograph type thing, because it's a dead line. I don't even think it's dip pen. But dude, that's the cart before the horse.
It is. It's a beautiful oversized volume though. Put it in perspective, there's a comic book. So I love whenever they do these art books and they do them oversized and you can really appreciate the art that you're looking at.
Yeah,
and
so,
that's what you have here.
And Joe Munhall, like when Fantagraphics got the license and they mentioned they were going to do a Munhall, I immediately was like, we need that book, because I am acquainted with Munhall's work from the Abrams Marvel book. Let me just pull this piece out real quick, Jimmy, since it's close by. But there was like such strong comic artwork in sort of the pre-Marvel comics that was what looked to me like Hal Foster level.
You know, I'm glad you say that, Ed, because, you know, as this says, it's Atlas Artist Edition. So I guess Fan is doing a line of comics that are looking at the Marvel art from the Atlas era, which is the 50s.
So like there's this piece right here on Munhall, and you'll see stuff like the Yellow Claw covers. I think does he show up here somewhere? But like they'll show up the Yellow Claw, and that is like one of the most incredible Golden Age covers like I've ever seen. Like it's such strong artwork, and you know, you get his little snapshot.
With the other revelation for me in the Atlas era, I got that Russ Heath art book, and I think we have a video on it. He did war comics for the Atlas comics, and they're phenomenal looking, at least the pieces that are in that art book.
Yeah.
So it feels like Atlas may be something that I underrated. You know, in my history of Marvel, you'd think of the Marvel Universe in the 60s.
Right.
I think they might have done some good work in the 50s.
There were some good guys that came through, and they benefited from the fall of EC Comics. They were still playing with those genre. So it's war, you had your horrors, but it was the the puss version. It was much more palatable to the mothers and stuff. So this is like the photo that Tom used in his Stan Lee comic. So like, dude, with the title, like, just let the people know, like, Joe Munhall was Stan Lee's guy. Before, like, Kirby is over, I guess maybe doing Challengers of the Unknown, or he's doing Sky Masters, comic strips. Joe Munhall is the badass who's a part of the Goodman brand of
another shot of him at the board
of comics with Stan the Man.
And some real parallels with Kirby in that prolific fast.
Yeah.
You know, so like once Stan Lee, Munhall does work for everybody. You know, like he gets to New York after working out of Philadelphia under Bob Powell.
Yeah.
Which I do think there's some Bob Powell in some of Munhall's work. And I say that as Bob Powell being one of the guys like I think of as a high point
Sure.
as a line artist from that time period. But he gets to New York, kind of visits all the publishers, does work for everybody, and pretty soon Stan Lee's like, all the work you can do.
Yeah, totally.
Which, you know, it does make me think about Stan Lee, because I know he's maligned for taking credit where he shouldn't be taking credit. But the flip side is he basically ran the Marvel publishing unit for, maybe 3 decades, and would find these guys and recognize that's a talent, man. Give them work, give them work, give them work. Keep them busy, keep them employed, keep them in this field, and keep them working for Atlas.
Yeah, totally. Like a big, that's Rick Rubin. That's honestly, that's Howard Stern. Like if you listen to a Howard Stern show, a chunk of the show is playing bits that are other people's creations, but it's like you have that curatorial sense and you have that taste to recognize good stuff when you see it. Manili, he played with all genre, so like we'll get some war comics in here. And by the way, like I just gotta, this is the Atlas Artist Edition, right? So like Scott Dunbier over there, the IDW Artist Editions. What does it say right there? Stories appear in chronological order, based on what, Jimmy?
They were when they were originally were assigned, not necessarily the order they were published.
Because the big frustration with those artist editions from the IDW brand of things is like you're looking at a 1990 fucking X-Men piece, and then you turn the page and you're looking at like a 1987 piece that Jim Lee drew, and it's like there's a dissonance, and it's the stupidest way to curate something, and this is like the smart way to do it, where you get to see sort of the crew, like you get to see the development of the artist.
A couple of things to note here is look at all the stories that have no writer credited because it's just unknown. Like talk about the history of comics being exploitation. But here's one that Joe Manili writes, and according to the intro is fantastic. This is the only story known that he wrote. So it makes me think, like, can you imagine him, like, having a longer career? Because the story, if you don't know it, is falls off a train and is killed, and he's, I think, 32?
And everybody is like, yeah, that's all we know. And it sounds shady as fuck. Because, like, how do you just fall off of trains?
It was after midnight.
Like who'd you owe money to?
That said, the train company did pay out a settlement, so
right.
Who knows?
And they said something about lost glasses, but like the Yellow Claw is Feldstein.
Yes.
Al Feldstein, the editor of the EC brand of comics. EC goes away.
Yeah, he leaves Mad for about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Writes this story,
and
goes
like,
back to Mad. And then Jack Kirby takes over this strip. And the other part in this intro, the idea of, do we know Jack Kirby if Joe Manili lived to a ripe old age? Because within a week of Manili's death, and maybe within a day or two,
they said it was almost the next day,
Jack Kirby returns to Marvel, and they start up basically like the Marvel monster sci-fi line, which preceded the Marvel Universe. So, at that point, Goodman's ready to cancel comics. There have been a couple of these moments where Martin Goodman, the publisher, is ready to cancel comics, and that was one of them. And I guess they have paperwork even saying that. So weird, crazy timing where it is literally like a day. The best artist is gone. Bring in the next guy.
Yeah, and it is noteworthy. Like the preamble stuff in all these kind of books, the comic strip reprints and stuff, sometimes supersedes the actual material that you get. So like the writer is like so thorough. Like we live in an age where there is a Joe Manili biographer who like knows the family, right, and
been working on it for like 30 years or more.
Writes all the articles for Alter Ego. Maybe even that little blurb in the Les Daniels book. Maybe he has some hand in that. So like he's probably like has the most intimate knowledge, and it makes sense that somebody reaches out at that way because the guy's art was so strong. And once again, we're looking at the early stuff, and then it's going to grow. You could just kind of keep.
I love like his. There's no shortcuts. So you think of this guy as being super fast, and this is something I used to think about Kirby, is like, oh, I must take all these shortcuts. And then you see like all these figures in a panel, complete figures and everything. Like he was producing, man.
Totally. And in some of those photographs in the pre, the introductory stuff, you see the revolvers on his wall and shit. So that was the era where you need to have a bunch of reference material on hand. If you are getting assigned some Western stories, you better go to like the surplus store and go get some reference stuff that you can look at.
It's something that comics historians praise him for too, is being accurate to all these details, the saddles, the hats, everything that's appropriate to the time. So not just fast, but very, very good. Man, I was going through this book and marveling at silhouettes. So if you're playing along at home, keep track of those because he has some really standouts, even like the shadows. Very good stuff. And did a lot of Westerns, that was popular. One of the stories in here is Marvel was publishing 70 books a month. They did the majority of, like, they were the biggest publisher for horror comics. Even though they weren't the ones that invented them, they started knocking them off with success.
Even Captain America became a horror comic. It's called Captain America's Weird Tales or something like that.
And then their distributor goes belly up. And that's where they go from 70 books to 14 because they take the deal with DC's distributor, and that's what about kills them.
Yeah.
Almost sinks the company. I also thought, looking at it, is his approach to figures is very different. You know, it's not Ditko, it's not Kirby. It's I do think there's a little Bob Powell visible.
There's a commercial aspect to it, man. It's not so far from, you know, your Bob Dobbs kind of style. And I think it a lot of, like, these figures, whenever these comics are coming out, like I don't see Gaines hiring him actually with the way he builds his figures, because it's not to the level of those EC guys. Another guy that comes to mind, and we'll see it with the more horror stuff, but Jay Disbrow comes to mind.
Oh, that's interesting.
With some of the double lighting stuff. It's not like a Wally Wood approach to double lighting. It's more a Jay Disbrow kind of version. Super solid splashes.
It's a great splash page.
And, you know, we looked at westerns.
Love these open panels too.
Yeah, that's like got the Johnny Craig vibes. We're going to get into some crime. There's Mad parody type comics.
Yes, I love the clown in the real world.
Pagliacci
pulling up to the diner to get his breakfast there.
You see those great photos from the days of yore.
Pretty great drawing too. You know, like he has a lot of lines, like a lot of rendering that he puts in his work, and it can really pull this stuff away from like simple cartooning or cartoonish looking.
Yeah, and there's a crudity to it. You know, like he's using probably the tech pens of the day on some of that hatching. Very dead lines, no thick and thins. And, you know, these straight things.
Yeah, that's what's nice too.
That was a 50 style.
You think of how much like Kirby and Ditko to a lesser extent influenced the Marvel style. You see marks here that just aren't that. You know, it's a different dude.
Yeah, Manili marks. You know,
one of those great. He does this too with silhouettes, where it's like there'll be one guy in silhouette in a panel, and I'm a sucker for that stuff where somebody comes in and out of the shadows. Yeah, that billboard's amazing. How about that for like your point of interest? You know, with your spotlights making the X where your characters are for the moment.
Yeah, good designy feature, and then that's just very evocative. Like I would accept that as like a big silkscreen print.
Yeah, man, that would be a strange, almost like a pop art kind of image. There's a cover gallery that we'll get to in the back that has some outstanding images, but I like a lot of his Western stuff too. I think is really strong. Some of the gunfighter poses and things, and even the detail of like running through town on horses.
Sure,
it's very detailed work. The close-ups, I think, are something that I don't see a ton of, at least not at that level of detail from the from reprints I have from, like, I don't know if this is Golden Age, 1950, I guess.
Yeah, like the way I always remember it is like the Silver Age is denoted with like when the Green Lantern gets changed and like the Flash gets updated.
That's a nice splash too, montage splash.
And some people who are watching this might be like, I don't see what you guys are seeing. You really do have to understand the context of the era, because there are a lot of very, very bad comics. He would have done a strip in these books, you know, like almost nobody drew the complete comics. And if you would see these strips amongst the others, then you would completely understand.
Yeah, if you look at those old comics, and a lot of that stuff you can find online. I've been going through like old crime comics. They look like they're drawn in the morning, you know, like 5 pages done before lunchtime.
Right.
It is not this variety of compositions, and also even just when you see full figures, you know, like if you want to save some time, do close-ups.
Right.
Don't do backgrounds. You know, like there's all these different techniques, and you don't see a lot of them here.
This piece really spoke to me, man. It feels super ambitious, and I think that he's when in Rome, so now he's got to do some kind of like space opera thing. You know, that's Alex Raymond-ish.
It is, and great weight on both of those figures are kind of like leaning on one leg, leaning on this, I don't know, some kind of stool
panel
thing there, but it's still like you see those figures with weight.
Yeah, and when you see them nude like that, Lou Fine was probably the early guy in comic books that could draw a figure at that level.
By the way, signing his name,
right.
Something that, you know, we looked at that table of contents, and there's a lot of non-credits there. You know, you got to sign those names. Very different images of what we would think of in the future as Kirby Crackle or something, but a different approach to that kind of intergalactic stuff.
I'll buy that. And that was like 5-6 disparate panels of like the Rapture or something, that all very, very interesting. But wild marks, marks that just they didn't really stand the test of time. But as a cartoonist, you and I, we could take a look at those and see how they're successful and probably apply them to your own practice.
This is cool. This is point of view. Like, we're this guy.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. And I love the depth that you're getting with the super foreground of a hand there. Again, it's just inventive. It's whenever you're churning this stuff out, that's the challenge at times. If you're going to draw these as fast as you can because you're not getting paid much, how do you keep them good?
Right.
And it does feel like he's certainly challenging himself. You see very different approach here to your page panel layouts.
I bet you Stan Lee wrote this one. I mean, just blatant.
That's what they were doing.
Just blatant.
That's the name of the game. And I mean, look, they're one of the publishers that made it through successfully. So that copycat stuff was definitely rewarded. Here's a war comic. So you see all of the genres too. And that's whenever I mentioned Namor at the beginning, he didn't, superhero is the one thing that he did almost nothing.
Because it was the era. Like, people were not fucking with superhero comics for like a good chunk of time there. The ones that were still coming out on a regular basis, it was inertia comics. It was because Superman was so gigantic at the start and the licensing opportunities were so numerous that let's just keep it going.
So one of the silhouettes I love, of course, but he does this a bunch with background elements that are a very fine line.
Yeah.
And just an open line. No blacks spotted on these backgrounds. You'll see that more as we go forward, but it's a lot of drawing that you wouldn't have to do.
The crown jewels of comics were probably the Kurtzman war books, around this time. So you have to imagine that he must have seen that stuff.
Oh, I'm sure. I love this thing.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird design.
And then when you start to see this stuff, this style of artwork starts to become into fashion, like with Charlton horror.
Did it? Yeah. And he does a little bit of Charlton work. Whenever Marvel loses all its distribution and a bunch of his work goes away, he goes back to draw wherever he can get a paycheck. And Charlton enters it. And the biographer at the beginning says, the work looks different. Like, this was a guy, I think, that was conscious of what he's getting paid and how much time he can put into the pages.
Yeah, proper illustration career.
And this is where I get sad that we don't have better records of this stuff, because I'm very curious now to see some of that Charlton. Like, what's it look like whenever he's doing this stuff at half the time? Or, maybe four times as quick. How about the weird, like, mark making for the cheeks and the rendering on that face?
Mm-hmm.
Stands out to me.
Yeah, which I feel like that's a Kurtzman-ish kind of a stroke.
This feels very Kurtzman.
Absolutely, with the lighting and everything. Yeah, like there were frontline combat covers that almost looks like a crop of one.
Good use of blacks, like, for a background, and then you see no black on the figures. It's all just that fine line.
He's got that very bold line that he's comfortable employing.
This surprised me, the 4-panel grid.
Mm-hmm.
Don't see that very often. Kind of interesting to see that show up.
Just that offensive yellow, like 25% yellow on the Asian characters, man, it's so fucked up.
Yeah. This feels very EC to me. Probably the big lettering effects.
The simple color, like Marie Severin would color that way, and she may be at Marvel now. If EC went away, like, she probably went right over across the street.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't talk about. We don't even have credits for most of the writers. Good luck figuring out who colored any of this stuff. Yeah. How about that for a figure?
Amazing.
Pretty hard to draw that, and pretty striking as your splash page.
And once again, it's this stuff that really attracts me. Because I don't know, I didn't get the memo that, like, comic artwork always has to be so crisp and, like, those perfect lines and all that kind of stuff. I like to see the hand. And I actually do think that we're coming back to that. I think that there's been enough digital, Procreate printed stuff that people are getting excited about the artisanal aspect of handmade comics.
Yeah, I think some of that expression is the people enjoying drawing, too.
Yeah.
Like, I've been doing more work on paper for that reason. I just wanted a break from the screen. He does put a lot of marks on a page. Mm-hmm. And, that takes time. That's that part of the reason people go to a brush is because it's fast. You can dash out a big, heavy line in one stroke rather than, if you're doing all these little rendered marks. But, man, it makes it beautiful. Here's another one of those where it's like part silhouette, but then you have, like, foreground elements that are clear.
Yeah, and then it's like say there's like 4 levels of depth, because this could be like the closest piece to us, and then you have the next layer, and then the third layer, and then the atmosphere is the fourth.
Right. Yeah, it's not like he would have to draw those kinds of clouds, which again take a little bit of time. If you pay attention, they're not touching the tree, so it's not like he's just dashing those off.
Right.
Some of them are in little tight spaces. We could talk reproduction a little bit. What they've done is scan the originals and then remove the yellowing of the newsprint.
Which I don't think was necessary.
Yeah, I wish they would leave a tiny bit of the yellow for the warmth that it brings. The stark white, it stands out. It's funny, though, when you see, like, the off-register scan.
Right.
But I do wish that they would, like, take some of that yellow away, but don't take it all away, because the white can be really cold. And we've talked about that in, like, the Rich Tommaso, Carl Barks reprints, where, like, he puts a little bit of that color then back in the white.
Right. And they're playing with the levels of the black, too.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Because it's, Tom calls it skin cancer black, is the black of old patinaed newsprint black. Skin cancer black. Multicolored.
I've never heard him say that. That's good.
Wild color here. And playing with, see, this is like the LB Cool color palette, where you're playing with, like, full cyan plate, full yellow plate to get that, like, super rich green. This is probably my favorite color of the 64 colors that were available in the early days, man. 100% cyan, 100% yellow.
That's a great leg for my money. Leg, foot, pattern on the trousers, all of it. How about this? You're looking through... I interpret this as I'm looking through the window of the office of the editor. So, it says editor on the window, but from the inside, it's backwards.
Yeah.
Amazing,
Get that
right?
light off of there. Yeah, which was a stroke of, this is an EC style story. There would be the Gaines, Feldstein stories where you're in the office and here are the guys. So this is our opportunity. But, like, it's still kayfabe, right? So, like, you don't got your Stan Lee guy.
How about even the panels within panels?
Comics and comics,
I love
baby.
it. Like, this may be my favorite spread in here.
Comics and comics.
Even like the title lettering on top. I think that's really great rendering.
That might be Stan Lee.
And I would not expect that kind of rendering in comics from this time period.
Totally. Because, like, you would see versions of that with, like, Jack Kamen, some of the EC guys, but it's so much more controlled. This is a very loosey-goosey approach.
It really makes me wonder, like you said, if this is a rapidograph or some kind of pen that he doesn't have to dip.
You could see dabs at the end of the lines. Like, you could see a little spider web that suggests some kind of pen. I wonder, like, when technical pens, like, became possible. Like, in the old Leroy Letterer, like, there was a version of the rapidograph pen.
I think those have been around.
Yeah, I just don't know.
I always enjoy the title lettering, too, on these splash pages.
Great hand.
Yeah, and there's so many lines in a lot of his rendering that it makes me think that's not a tool that you're dipping.
He's going deeply Jack Davis on this one.
This is really cool with all, like, the insects and everything. And it's 2 panels. I thought this was neat to see, a big sci-fi splash page.
Right.
You get a chance to see, like... Again, we've looked at a few of the Ditkos and the Kirbys from that era, and those splash pages, super important. There are pages that stand out, and I think this is yet a third voice.
Yeah, it feels straight from the pulps.
Uses the vertical panel correctly.
Right.
And for anybody at home that doesn't know what I mean, is if this panel is on this side, then you go like panel 1, panel 2. Oh, do I read this? Or do I read this one?
Right.
If you're going to do that, it has to be on the left if you want total clarity in what order to read panels in. A splash midway through the story.
Really,
well, towards the end of the story, I guess.
Really has that vibe of old pulps. And then you get to this, and it's another Jack Davis.
Beautiful.
Kind of
some
aesthetic.
Will Elder. Yeah, it's cool to see. Man, imagine a compilation of like all the Frankenstein stuff. And again, the hatching that he's putting down there. You could do that real fast with a brush and just make that black,
right?
Yeah,
you see the end of those dots, man. Like there's just a little extra bleed.
There's an original in the front in the intro, and I wonder if there's other originals of his work, if any of that stuff survived, because 50's not a great era for that. I was trying to figure, this may be like your Mad Magazine parody.
Yeah, we're getting there for sure. This is like... Sergeant Bilko or something.
And you can see, like, clearly they're looking at, like, the Kurtzman Mads and being like, okay, this is something that EC's selling now. Let's see if we can sell some of these.
Yeah, I think this one's called Riot.
Yeah.
You start to think of Wolverton.
Yeah, some of the line work has made me think of Wolverton throughout, because he's another guy that would do all these little lines. It's a great splash, using black just in one figure. It's one of those, like, there's a couple of these panels that I see and I think of Toth, and it's like, to me, that's a Toth move, right? He would famously put the dot on the page and be like, now that's your focal point. And I feel like whenever you have black only on one figure, that's your focal point.
When you go through the strips, you start to make all those, like, connections, because, like, Popeye's shirt is black, like Nancy, her hair is black.
Another one of the great silhouettes in the middle of a fire. You got your figures, just imagine the smoke screen around them,
This is the closest he's come to Masterpiece, is his Black Knight run. And when you see this, like, it's like super ornate costumes. He's looking at Foster.
Yeah.
He probably has, like, the tear sheets or something.
Great setting. Some of these settings and castle designs and stuff.
And I know this castle, from probably book 2 of Hal Foster's Prince Valiant.
Stylization of characters too. They have a cartoon element to them. I think that stuff's strong. I thought this fight sequence was pretty well done.
Right, which I may also be cribbed.
It's possible. But I was looking at it through that lens of also different voice than a Kirby, who I think of as like your blueprint for fight scenes, especially in like a Marvel comic. This is not that.
Yeah, and also for all the beauty of Hal Foster's Prince Valiant, it'd be nice to get a little more magic, a little bit more fighting, a little bit more mania into the comics.
Very subtle, small detail, but I love the shadow.
Oh, yeah.
Taking up the bricks now, like you have it all open here, but when the shadow falls on it, the Frank Miller brick shadows.
Yeah, this is a fun page, because it's, if you just isolated this page and you were like, Ed, what's this come from? I would say, I don't know, Classics Illustrated. I would never think Marvel.
Yeah.
And this technically ain't Marvel, but you know what I'm saying. See, there's those pens again. He's got balls.
Yeah, you see it in like some of the folds too. Some
Yeah.
of the fine lines in the folds, and there's your heavy end on those lines.
Right.
So whatever that tool is, same one there. Variety of, again, composition in these panels. It stands out. Like this reminds me of Toth. And it may just because it's a Western and he did all those Zorros, so, how are you going to draw leather boots? Again, great silhouette in the foreground. Imagine him sitting under the porch overhang at the sheriff's office as these outlaws roll into town. You were talking about him doing, even just partial stories, and they mentioned, like, he would do, like, a splash page for a new book.
Yeah, just page 1. Ringo Kid 1. It might even have been what we saw. But that's Kurtzman's storytelling right here.
Yeah. Boy, it works great. It looks so good across the page.
And what's interesting, too, is when we get there, they're clearly cribbing from the headlines. When we get to the Yellow Claw, where it's that kind of like what they call it, like the Yellow Threat, Yellow Fever, whatever they call it. The first Two-Fisted Tales had a couple of Feldstein stories, and they were the same kind of story of like Chinese intrigue and shit.
Yank Kitchen. This is so Dennis the Menace, like in a way that if EC was going to hire him, they could slot him right into the Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, we want you to do this style, this parody, this artist, and it's like,
and what's interesting,
nuts.
Yeah, what's interesting is it's a parody of like the Dell comics because they would have these kinds of panels and some air and all that kind of stuff, which were way more popular, so much more popular than anything like Goodman's bibliography of books was way low on the list of like what was selling.
Yeah, I think volume was the way they they kept their lights on. It's pretty great though in a time of speed to be able to go from channel this style now we're back to I guess his regular style.
You had to be all around, Jimmy. When I was at the Kubert school, there was a class every week called Humor and Caricature. Humor and caricature. So like you had to do funny shit. For 3 heads tall drawings.
Our complaints about contemporary comics, that would be mine.
Yeah.
Get some liveliness, get some sense of humor.
Unfortunately,
in there.
It's been that way for a long time. We looked at that Thing comic with the Pac-Man thing, or Lobo the Duck, right? Like there was no diversification of style there.
This is so the Yellow Claw you mentioned a couple times. It's talked about in the intro. Very ornate kind of style. So this is one of those pieces that is held up, at least by his biographer, as being showing off his ability.
The
rendering on the house.
They're saving it, I guess. Maybe it will be a volume 2 or something. But like they only put one of the Yellow Claw covers in here, and it's like, just put both. Just put both, man.
Yeah, it makes me nervous.
And I say that because I want the other book.
Well, I was going to say, it makes me nervous if they're saving it just because, like, I don't know how this sells.
Right.
I don't know if we get another book. Hopefully we do. If you're out there watching this and you're on the fence, pick this up. This is pretty amazing comics. See, this is where he does that black background, and now we're just going to go line art. And, we've seen Frank Miller do this.
Yeah.
Like, Electra Lives Again has this kind of quality, and that was to accommodate, I think, the coloring style.
Right, sure. Yeah, leave it open for Lynn.
He does this quite a bit. You see it here. Foreground characters have blacks and shadows, and in our background, just line art.
Creates that depth of field. You can't deny that.
Does it in the background on the splash. It's a good technique.
And also, the guy who instituted that, as far as I know in comics, really was Jack Davis. Like, when you look at the backgrounds of the ECs, and we commented it a lot on it, we looked at the various artist editions and stuff like that. That was a stroke that Davis would put into his work for sure.
Fight foreshortening.
Yeah, lacks dynamics. Like that's you Kirby would make that fist way bigger. And I would say that Kirby was more accurate because like that compared to that fist with the jaw, it's a very tiny hand.
All right, so here's our cover gallery. And you see him doing the different genres, are represented here. And like you say, Ed, I don't know if there's a volume 2 planned or not, but the guy is credited with 3,500 pages and 500 covers. Yeah. So this book looks like a pretty good collection. It's a small sample of what Munhall produced. There's your cover image in close-up. I thought this was neat for composition where you have your eyes and almost a third eye
right
on our main character there.
Got both of the Black Knights.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's just so burnt into my brain, that cover. And, I have a lot of his work in reprint. Whenever I would go down to Ides and buy the whole boxes of the coverless comics, it would be a lot of the Westerns, and he's got stories in so many of them.
I like this a lot, but it's hard for me to judge it because of the black background. You
right,
wouldn't see this on very many covers. That stands out to me, and I like how it looks, but it also kind of works well with the black matte. I love this cover.
Yeah.
This is another one that feels Tothian to me, but it also uses that, like, our background's just going to be line art.
And these are my faves because it's just seeing him do the superhero. It's so wonky compared to what we think of as like superhero language, but you get the sense that behind the scenes maybe Stan Lee and crew were like, we got a new Schomburg because it has that kind of mania, but like that this is wild. It's not feathering,
right?
It's full bore hatching.
Yeah, I would like to see more of it. How about this, man?
Big. Yeah, this one would be on EC covers, but like it obviously that thing stood the test of time. The paper tiger, as we called it.
I also didn't realize, that idea that Marvel is doing 70 books or whatever.
Is it still recording?
Yeah. The idea that Marvel's publishing 70 books, I had no idea they were putting out that kind of volume in the 50s. No. It makes me kind of curious. Like, I'd like to see a month. Give me a month of those, what that looks like.
And who are all the guys like that are a part of that stuff? Look at this washes and stuff in the background. Like, this is a very beautiful cover. And the other Yellow Claw cover that he does is it's paperback level illustration.
This is so cool because of this pillar on the side. It's almost like when people would draw like the fake book in an ad or whatever,
and they just destroy it with the
yeah, of course. Man, if you look at the building details in the background, it is super elaborate.
Yeah,
and very fine line. That's another one that you don't see that much. Wonder if that fine line, if that's something he picked up in the studios, because he starts in Philly. Like I said, Bob Powell was one of those guys. It feels like there's a tool that he's using that not everybody, you're not seeing in the Ditko and the Kirby stuff.
Right.
Something that he picked up somewhere along the way that separated him, from the others.
Fantastic collection. This was one whenever they got the license over there at Fantagraphics. I was like, I cannot wait to see this book, and it does not disappoint.
It does make me wonder who else is doing Atlas work. Like what other quality cartoonists are we going to see Fantagraphics publish as part of this Atlas? Even if it's like a collection of maybe a title or something where you get 3 or 4 different artists on it. I'm curious to see that because, I mean, that stuff I could not find as reprints really as a kid.
Right.
You know, and I don't know, it's I don't go back and look at it.
No,
you know, like you could probably find some of it in internet archives at this point, but I haven't. So a lot of this stuff is kind of new for me for comics history.
Yeah, totally. And what's funny is I think they're already like serving pre-orders for like volume 2 of other stuff. So there's Adventures in Terror, which is Gene Colan.
Oh yeah, young Gene Colan ought to be interesting to look at.
Atlas Comics 3 in the Days of the Rockets, it says Joe Meneely. Atlas 2 is Venus, which is Bill Everett. Atlas 4 is going to be Joe Meneely. So they're putting up pre-orders for a bunch of stuff, man. The next one to come out will be the Gene Colan one is out. The May is going to be Days of the Rocket. April will be Bill Everett. And then August will be another. If it's not the title, it's because you see right here, it's the title. So I guess maybe not exclusively Joe Meneely. Yeah,
Well,
and that'll have Russ Heath in it and Gene Colan. Okay, I see.
Should be interesting. Should be some stuff that maybe we haven't seen good reproduction of in the past. So
I trust Fanta when it comes to this stuff, man. I trust them wholeheartedly. Good to go?
yes.
Now, pass me that real quick, man. Do you have on your iPad this issue? So because what we were thinking of doing was doing a read through, like we did with our transcription stuff. It even fits into the courtroom talk, Jimmy.
Yeah, it does.
Like our playlist, which was another thought that came to mind.
I'm gonna steal your.
Yeah. There's a lot of images. So what I'm thinking is we do it, and then we keep tabs on the time. If it goes an hour, then that's 2 episodes. And like when we get to the half hour, we'll cut it and then we'll do like a restart. But I think we do the video introduction with us with the stuff when we do the microscope. Let's do a introduction vid here, like we're gonna be doing an overview, and just be like, you know what? Let's just follow their own words,
Okay.
something like that. And then we'll hop in the other room. We'll do.
Time is it?
It's noon, so we'll have time to do intros, and then maybe like just get a quick bite.
Hit that focus again because it was on top of the Meneely.
Okay, so we're recording this with your phone?
Might as well. It's all set up.
Okay, cool.
And then I'll just send you all that stuff.
Yeah, do it. And of course, we got to give shouts to West Coast Day Avengers, man, for supplying it, because like I had no idea about this, and this is a sweet spot era for me. I actually I'd never had this journal, but like the stuff that they're talking about is all. It all hits me. You know, Jessica Abel is like, you know, best new artist. Like I grabbed Art Babe when it was fresh.
Yeah, it's neat to see. There's a couple of artist awards in here. Oh, I didn't look at the Xeric award.
Yeah,
winner.
it's Gene Yang, dude. He was doing shit back then.
Wow.
There can't be 2 Gene Yangs.
No, I'm sure that's him. Interesting.
I had no idea that he was around that long. I thought something like American Born Chinese was brand new, but like, and Ellen Forney, I didn't know she was into shit all like that long ago. And Two Fisted Science, yeah, I remember that one. That's the one I remember.
That's amazing. He has given out Peter Laird $415,000 at this point. Wow, that's only 5 years in.
Yeah,
like he's kicking out almost $100,000 a year. That's cool. The other, this is the one I was thinking of, is the I don't know if these are the Eisners or Harveys or
There's
what.
a British one.
These are the but these are the Eisners, and it gives you the nominations for all those. And then the UK Comic Art Awards. Kind of cool.
Yeah, there was some weird stuff with the UK. There was, oh yeah, it was auxiliary contributor because it's like it's colorists, but like why you got to call them auxiliary contributors? It's just call them colorists.
Yeah, it's weird.
All right.
You have an intro in mind for this?
You know what? I'll hop in there, dude, and because like we'll do a little acting. And we'll do the whole typical bit that we do. All right, man, hit it. Hold up. How do we usually start this? Oh, yeah. Well, this will be the proper intro. Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Today, thanks to a Kayfabe lieutenant, West Coast Dave, sent us a issue of Comics Journal where the Dark Prince of Outlaw Comics interviews Rob Liefeld right as Heroes Reborn goes away, and he gets he's not an Image any longer. We'll put it that way. But first, we do want to let you guys know that we are a daily YouTube channel with more than 1,600 videos at your disposal. We may have talked about your favorite comics, so hit the magnifying glass on the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give the channel a search for your favorite titles and check out those videos. We are in part subsidized by the Patreon and the King Kayfabers on our Patreon. For one, they're hanging out with us in the live stream chat room right as of this moment, but they get access to all the videos before anybody else. Mitigates the Kayfabe effect. This issue of Comics Journal, saw a couple of them on eBay right now. It's issue number 196. The King Kayfabers are snapping them all up, and you missed out. Become a King Kayfaber, support the channel. We are on the road to 100,000 subscribers for the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. We've been at this for about 5 years. It's time. Get us to 100,000. Let us do a little victory lap video showing off that little trophy that all the other YouTube channels have in their background, so that we can prosper and keep this thing rocking. Without further ado, Jimmy, Hart D. Fisher from Boneyard Press did a comic called Kill Image. The Comics Journal is nothing if not a little humorous, and it says that they paid him to go do this Rob Liefeld interview, and you just imagine like a big old bearded biker guy, and a little Christian like son of a deacon, kind of a Peckerwood like OC kind of character. That's a funny tandem, and we can
It's an amazing interview too, and I somehow this had gone past me. I had no idea Hart Fisher did this interview, and it's substantial. It's 20 pages or something, pretty in depth, covers a lot of territory, and it's a little bit of a raw Rob Liefeld.
Yeah. You never seen him like this, man. You never seen him this kind of candid, and it's one of those things, man, that he's in a vulnerable position. Like his life has completely changed, 360 compared to where it was probably 365 days before this. So there's a shell shock that is involved in here, man. There's lawsuits and stuff, and in our Wizard magazine coverage, we just covered this material in the issue say 60 to 63, where one Mark Silvestri disappears, Maximum Press is starting to get a lot of hype, and then a couple issues later, Rob Liefeld is no longer an Image, and probably issue 64, that might be when Silvestri comes right back.
Yes.
So
in the bigger backdrop of comics as a whole at this time is plummeting sales,
real bad,
distributors going away, all of that. Liefeld's heyday at this point is all that speculator boom has contracted, and now it's almost like, oh boy, comics are over,
right? Which
is going to be the narrative for the next couple of years from that kind of like we were selling millions and now we're selling 30,000 or less.
Totally.
So it's the sky is falling, and maybe the biggest fall is Rob Liefeld in this time period.
And there is a Todd McFarlane rebuttal piece that is at the end of this. This issue takes place April of 1997. So it's a little bit past our Wizard coverage. And you know what, man? There is a lot of legalese, and this is a 1997 Rob Liefeld. This is a 1997 Todd McFarlane. Fences were mended to some extent over the years. Don't want to rankle up old wounds, but also it might not be the greatest idea to put our own conjectures in our own prognostications and our own thoughts into like what we're reading. I was thinking like, yeah, we read this interview. Let's just kind of do a sort of recap of stuff. But I think maybe we go to the other part of the studio and we just do a read along. What do you think about that, Jimmy?
Probably the safest thing to do.
Yeah, and to get the words verbatim, it's a fascinating conversation.
There's a lot of gems.
Let's go. Let's hit the. How should I do it? It's been a long time, Jimmy. Let's do our courtroom read through. Cool. So just send me that. You can probably do that right now. West Coast Dave, thanks so much, dude. Thanks so much for sending this thing to us, man. You got it like last week and was like, fuck yeah. Like, this has to be covered. And literally just this morning, I was like, because like we would have to be talking about it and we would have to be putting some opinions on it. And this is like old wounds and maybe just let the words speak for themselves. So it might be a two-parter. We got to see how long it'll last and stuff. Just got a text from Dave Cho. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, I think this is one of the great Comics Journal interviews I've read.
Yeah.
It surprises me that I did not see it until, the last week or two. Better late than never.
All right, Dave Cho. We doing 10 my time, correct? That's 1 p.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, guys. We're gonna tear down the Dave Cho stuff. We're not gonna stream that because that's too much internet shit that could fuck up the Zoom. But might be able to just put. It's not that big of a challenge to just start a stream whenever we do the read through. So take care, guys. We might put another stream up after the Cho chat. Can't guarantee it. Take care. And I'll get the Cho chat edited first for my run. So.